Alex says, what do you think is the proper way for a husband to treat his wife regarding family decision-making, especially when they disagree? So there's a good question here, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're told that women should submit to their husbands and husbands should love their wives as Christ loves the church. If we're going to listen to Chrysostom, we're going to say that the family is not a democracy, that there is a head here. Now, I'll just speak from my own point of view and then get you to kind of answer this, because it's very difficult, I think, to answer this theoretically. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But like, I can think of maybe there's been one, I don't know, I've been married like 15, 16 years, where we've actually come to like there is no resolution unless you just take my opinion, even though you feel very strongly. There hasn't been one, I don't think. Certainly we've fought and argued. But like, I really want to know what my wife has to say. And very often she's more intuitive than I am, almost always. And she's never led me astray. Now, that doesn't mean I just sort of take her opinion and throw my own away. And there are probably times where I've said, no, this is what we're doing. But in those times I've sensed this sort of like this receptivity in her to want to know, like, what do we do here? But it's been mutual. But
yeah. I mean, I've had the same experience. I can't really think of a time that, I mean, usually if there's a more complex issue, I mean, very often when it comes to big decisions, my husband and I will just have conversations, like multiple conversations about it, because I genuinely want to know what he thinks. Mm-hmm. And
he presumably wants to know what you think.
And usually through that process, we get on the same page. And so I can't think of like a single time where it's become just like, I mean, this is kind of a funny example, but we're preparing to make like a cross-country move in the next, I don't know, month. So we've been having this ongoing discussion about like, which hellish way of moving cross-country with 4 small children and 2 cats and a dog should we pick, right? Like, which is the least worst option, right? And we had very different instincts about what that would be. And we kind of went around, kind of back and forth. And then just the other day, I was like, let's sit down. We've got to make a decision because the deadline's looming here. And then we just kind of talked through it, and I was like, I really want to know what you think. And, and eventually we kind of came to an understanding, and then we both felt good about the decision, and then we made it, so it wasn't, but neither person was like dominating it, because I think we just both really wanted to, it feels much more like a dance. Now there have been times, right, because we've talked about my husband and I have been in very different faith circumstances in our marriage. And, I think there was a time when I was being, I don't know, like more controlling. And it took me a while to realize that, where I kind of wanted to like facilitate his conversion, where I'd be like, ooh, read this book. Or I'd be like praying on these novenas, just constantly because like I wanted it on my timeline. And it took me a while to realize that like, oh, I just need to get out of the way and I need to give him total freedom. And so in a way, that's kind of like I needed to learn to just sort of submit to his, like he's going to make his own decisions about his religious practice and faith. And that's not something I need to like curate from behind the scenes. So in a way, that was kind of me learning to submit to him, but at the same time, I take seriously my role in forming the faith of my kids, right? So there were times where I think I had to step into that role because my husband wasn't in that place. And it was lonely. Like it didn't feel good, And then there are times, and then when my husband started say like leading the prayer before dinner, I was like thrilled about that. Like that felt good and that felt right. Not because, there's something beautiful about that. And I think, speaking of theology of the body, I mean, there is something in male physiology that carries an air of authority. And babies see this immediately, right? Like all of my kids have gone through a phase as infants where like anytime they hear a man's voice, they just burst out crying. Like
my daughter Avila used to cry when a man would look at her.
Yes,
I had a good friend who wanted to hold my daughter, but had to wear sunglasses for her not to cry.
Yes, exactly, right? And that's because like men are bigger, they're stronger, they're more intimidating, their voices are like more powerful and deep. And I think if we were more in tune with kind of our primal instincts, we would realize how important that is and how much that matters, right? And so if you have the person in the home who kind of embodies that kind of authority physically and who's, not using that authority in a way that's like directing the family toward faith, then that can really undermine that. And that creates a void that it's hard for a woman to fill. Of course, not everyone's in ideal circumstances, and many women try to fill that role all the time, but it's not the ideal. So and I don't think it's funny, like I feel a little bit like, oh no, people are going to be mad because I just sort of made this essentialist argument. But I think it's just true. I think we're so detached from embodiment in our culture that we don't realize how much those things really matter and how much those even subtly shape our perception. And how much, if you think about the physiology of the father and that kind of strength and power and authority that physiology conveys, if that's used abusively, like how devastating that is. Yeah. But also if that's used protectively, like how much security that provides for young children and how important that is. So I think that kind of strength is so important and beautiful when it like is creating this sense of security in the family and not control, but safety and freedom.
I love it. Yeah. I've had to say to one of my children as they've gotten older, one of my sons, what did you just say to my wife? So powerful.
Wow.
So good.
Yeah. Really? Yeah.
This is my wife. And that's not going to happen ever again, is it? No, Dad, right, good. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought about the video.